A question came to me by text in the Q&A box in one of the Udemy courses, and I kind of enjoyed the question, so I thought I would share it with you here and make a few comments on about it. I don't have an exact formalized response in mind, but I just wanted to share it with you and talk about it a little bit. First, there's the question. And hi, Swami J. I have several questions about ignorance. First, what is it? I get that it is an act of forgetting, but why does Purusha forget itself? If you say that it is because of ignorance, then it becomes cyclical, means self forgets itself because of an act of forgetting. Also, where is the seat of ignorance? Is it in intellect? I quite like the series of questions, and because there's so many question marks in there, there's not any one single comment to it. So I thought I'd just take it in the order in which it is questioned there and try to comment on it. First, what is it? I get that it is an act of forgetting. What is avidya? Remember that the word is avidya. We translate it into English as ignorance. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that the person who asked the question is seeing it this way, but unfortunately, when we bring that word into English, when we shop around in the English language for a word for avidya, we actually don't have a word. Why do we not have a word? Now, there may be some word that is actually just right in some of the mystical writings of some of the religions, the Western religions, but if there is, I don't know that word, and I've never heard anybody say what that word is. But vidya means knowing. The word vidya means knowing, and it means knowing the absolute, infinite, non-dual reality, pure consciousness that goes by many names, including the word Purusha. When you put the letter A in front of it, it means not that. So another example is himsa means harming. Ahimsa means non-harming. It's the first yama in the yamas of the Yoga Sutras. Ahimsa is the practice of non-harming. It means harming is himsa, and so don't do that. It's ahimsa, and that's cultivating non-harming. Vidya means knowing. Avidya means the absence of knowing, the absolute reality, truth. Some people call consciousness, some people call the divine, the light within, some people call God, whatever you call it. This is the notion of vidya. Avidya means the absence of awareness of that. Note, just for the fun of it, that even in the English language, the root of the word ignorance is ignore. Look, ignore is part of the word ignorance. And so in some sense, and we're not accustomed to thinking in this way, in some sense, ignorance is a benefit. In some sense, ignorance is the very definition of mental health in modern psychology. In modern psychology, there are two terms called primary process and secondary process. Primary process is all of the activities of the unconscious mind. And if that primary process is coming forward during the day into what is called secondary process, this is called, amongst other things, psychosis. So in the psychology approach, what is desired is that there's a nice thick wall, a barrier between primary conscious and secondary consciousness. And so what we are trying to do in the Western mental health model is have the ability to ignore the unconscious primary process. It's widely observed in psychology that this is one of the healthy reasons for dreaming, so that when you're in bed asleep, you can work out in dreams. You can dream at the primary process level. You don't have to have it come outward into your daily life. and fulfill the silly desires that you have in your unconscious mind. I'm just saying there's a comparison there of primary process and secondary process. So the ability to ignore is the very ability that allows us to function out here in the external world. In yogic philosophy, the thing that we are ignoring is the actual fact that there is only one absolute non-dual reality, pure consciousness called Brahman or Atman or Paramatman, or the Shiva that's one with Shakti. There's different ways of saying it. So avidya means the absence of the awareness of that one non-dual reality, and that's called ignorance. And remember, I mean, I'm trying to make the point here that the thing that's awkward, that's clumsy, is the word ignorance, but it translates from the word avidya. And so we just have to ponder with this, and we get some idea of this. So another way of saying it is that if the teachers of all of the cultures of the world are right, which they are, and there is such a thing as the light of consciousness or the divine or truth, capital T or capital R, reality, or any one of those words like that, then we of necessity must lose sight of that if I'm going to emerge out here in the world as an individual. And as an individual, first we have to individuate. One of the old metaphors, you probably heard me say this before, one of the metaphors is of the wave and the ocean. We live near an ocean here, and I often ask people, please go to the beach, sit on the beach, and watch the ocean. And notice you look and you say, wow, there's the ocean. Now sort of blink your eyes and look over there and you see there's a wave over there, and over there's a wave, and over there's a wave, and over there's a wave. We see individual waves, and then sort of blink again and take another look and you see, the old waves are there, but what I see is the ocean. It's a metaphor, that's all it is. So for the individual wave to see it as an individual rather than as qualitatively the ocean requires avidya. Avidya is the individualized word. The cosmic or macrocosmic word for that that's commonly used is maya. There is, which gets translated as illusion. It doesn't mean that it's unreal in the sense that there is no existence. It doesn't mean that you and I are not separate individual people out here and that we're simply having a hallucination that the other person is there. But there is the appearance. There is the maya. There is the appearance out here in duality. If you have any sense whatsoever of there being one reality, if you have any intuition at all that says, I think the highest reality is one, then you simply must have some way to account for the fact that there is the appearance of duality. There appears to be a me, and if I'm out in a public place, there appears to be all of those other people. Are we wrong? Well, yes and no. There are the other people. But it is because of maya at the macrocosmic level, and it is because of avidya at the microcosmic level. They're basically the same terminology. As one relates to me and the other relates to all, whether it's maya or avidya. There is the veiling process, so I don't see the oneness. It allows me to see the multiplicity. Now, that's not a bad thing. If, however, I say I want to waken up, I want to do self-realization, I want to know Atman, I want to know the center of consciousness, I want to have the direct experience of Purusha, then that avidya, that maya, is the obstacle, ultimately is the obstacle that we encounter. And we must transcend that avidya. I hope that's helpful. I'm going to read here. But why does Purusha forget itself is the next part of this question. Why does Purusha forget itself? Whenever we pose the question why in any context like this, it's a very clumsy, awkward word. And my response to that is probably not going to be satisfying. Why does Purusha forget itself? Because it's just in the nature of reality. Why is there Maya? Because it is in the nature of reality so that the one may appear as multiplicity. It allows each of us to think of ourselves as an individual, as I was saying before. I don't know if that constitutes a sufficient response to the word why, but why is a difficult word. If we say that it is because of ignorance, then it becomes cyclical. I'm going to say back to you, absolutely it becomes cyclical. This is the way the universe operates. There's this ongoing cycling process. If you and I have any intuition of the truth of the nature of what I'm attempting to talk about here, notice the fact that in one meditation or one contemplation, if I'm saying this well, you may be following me, say, wow, this kind of makes sense. That's part of the cycle. And then a day from now, a week from now, you get caught in the activities of the world, and some other individual out there in the world challenges you as an individual in some way, and instantly you jump to defend your identity of me. And now there's a me and there's a him or a her. And I have just gone back into avidya. I have gone back into the ignorance. And so why am I saying that? Because I agree with you completely. It is cyclical. It is absolutely cyclical. The reality is not cyclical, but our experience of that reality is cyclical. We ought to be able to cultivate a daily meditation practice where I have at least once a day, if not twice or thrice or 4 times a day, a few times a day, where I can sit quietly and for a few minutes I can suspend my relationship with all those people in the world. I can suspend my relationship with my body. I can suspend my relationship with my breath. I can suspend my relationship with my thinking mind. I can suspend my relationship even with my intelligence. Excuse me. And I can have some glimpse of the experience of my true nature as pure consciousness that is not entangled with any of that. And I have that few minutes of meditation and say, wow, this was pretty cool. And then I get up from my meditation seat, and as best I can, I take that awareness with me out into the world and call that meditation in action or something like that. And then often we get caught up in that stuff of the external world with those other people, and I lose it again. And what do I do then tomorrow morning? Once again, sit quietly and again, temporarily set aside the world of people, set aside my body, be aware of my body, set aside my body so that I can withdraw inward to my breath awareness, be aware of my breath, then come inside of my breath to my mind field, then come inside my mind field back to the intelligence that's standing alone, and finally have a few moments where I suspend even the intelligence. And once again, I get a glimpse of the Purusha. It may not be permanent and it may not be totally deep, but at least it's an intuition of the nature of this word Purusha or Atman or Shakti, this one with Shiva, or consciousness or divine or God or the light within, or however we choose to call it. We have a little glimpse of that. Then what happens? We cycle again. We get back up from our meditation seat, and before you know it, I'm back on the job again. I'm back out there with people. I'm with my family, and all of a sudden somebody says something that irritates somebody called me, and I get caught up in the crap again, and it cycles. So I'm just saying to you, I agree with this cycling process. What are we ultimately trying to do? We're ultimately trying to get free from the cycling, where I am more or less 24/7, as the saying goes, aware to some degree of the Purusha. It's not perfect for most of us. We're not Christ. We're not Krishna. We're not Buddha. We are not there yet, except at our true nature, at the core of our being, that's exactly who we are. And it seems to be that all of these great sages say in one voice that you are divine, you are God, you are truth, you are Atman, your true nature is Purusha. This is what we're talking about. Mind, keep going on, mind, self forgets itself because of an act of forgetting. That's a correct statement. Also, where is the seat of ignorance? Is it in the intellect? Answer, no, it is not in the intellect. This is a tricky one. What you've got to understand is in the yogic way of viewing reality, first primary is consciousness. And consciousness operates outward through the avidya, through the maya. And the first thing that happens is there is individuation. Once there is individuation, now there is an individual wave in the ocean of consciousness, and it now perceives of itself as an individual. Then the next thing that emerges out of that is the intelligence, or what you call the intellect. Then comes the intellect. It's not the other way around. Now, much of modern science will completely, totally disagree with this, because they say that only physical matter is primary. And they say that consciousness emerges out of matter. And the yogis have observed through their experiences and their experiments that that's backwards, that consciousness is part of what is primary. Now, note that when you and I use the word consciousness, we think of consciousness being that thing that I'm using right now to talk to you. But the consciousness, I use this as a metaphor, the consciousness is more like the electricity that's operating this computer that I'm using right now. Now, the computer has an operating system which seems to be working well. It just upgraded earlier today. So it has an operating system. It has a motherboard in there. It has a hard drive. It has a whole bunch of programs. It has a microphone there. And it has a camera up there, and all of this stuff is there. Those are all the instruments. But if I think of this computer as a metaphor for me, who am I? I might be tempted to say, well, I'm the program that is operating right now, or I am the microchip, or I am the hard drive. The actual answer is none of the above. The answer in the computer metaphor is that who I am is the electricity. I am the pure electricity that is operating that light bulb up there that's shining on my face. I am the electricity that's operating this computer right now. I'm the electricity that's making the fan work over my head and the light over my head work. I am electricity. I am, and the comparison of that, the metaphor of that, is I am pure consciousness. Now, note here that when we talk about pure consciousness, you and I will naturally fall into the temptation to think that consciousness is what I'm doing, flapping my lips here and my tongue and my vocal cords and my brain is what that's consciousness. No, that's not consciousness. That's not Purusha. That is only the instrumentation of consciousness. So you and I normally get it backwards. I'm not criticizing your question. I love the question. Also, where is the seat of ignorance? Is it in intellect? And I'm going to say again, no, that's backwards in the yogic sense of look at this. The intellect comes second. First, primary is the consciousness. Primary is Purusha. Emerging out of the Purusha through this process of avidya and maya and all of that and appearances, there then emerges intellect or intelligence. Then after that comes a mind which can take on all sorts of characteristics and an ego. So an ego can say, I am a man, deluded man, I am a Swami. If I say I am a Swami or I am an American because I happen to be born in this body in this country, then I'm deluded. This is called avidya. I've gotten confused. No. If I say aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. If I say shivoham, I'm saying the word Brahman is simply a word that means it's the name, it's a label, not a name like a proper name. Like, my name is Swami Jnaneshvara. It's not a proper name like that. It's a word like saying this is a pen. This happens to say that it's a real estate pen because a realtor gave me this pen. And so his name is on it. That makes it a particular pen, but the category name is a pen. And so who am I? I am Purusha. I am Shiva. I am the ground reality. I am Brahman. I am the oneness. To put it in Western Bible language, now I don't want to start a fight over this. In Western Bible language, they tell the story that one man said, I and my Father are one. And then the religionists say, he and the Father are one, but the rest of you people are defective. There's something wrong with you. The yogi looks at that message. The mystic looks at that message and says, no, that's a message from a yoga teacher saying, look, the truth is that if we call the infinite reality Father, then every one of us is a child of the Father. And I too am one with the Father. So there's different ways of saying it. But the principle is essentially the same. There's one reality because of the ignorance or avidya or amaya or illusion or the yin and the yang. There's different ways of describing how this happens. The pure consciousness appears to take on characteristics and build an ego and a me structure and this body and all of that stuff. And I just get more and more and more locked up in the false identities that this is who I am. And the entire process of yoga, the entire process of self-realization is one of waking up, awakening from the avidya. Notice in our common language, many people talk about spiritual awakening. Well, if you're going to have something called spiritual awakening, why do we need it? Because we have something called spiritual sleeping. And the notion is that you and I, as Purusha, as pure consciousness, fell asleep into the silly notion that this is who I am. And the sages say, the great sages of history, tell us in one voice, that's not who you are. They'll use different language, different words. We're using the language of the yogis here, and most of that is in Sanskrit. And then in a clumsy way, we pick up what words do we have in English to talk about this stuff, and we do the best we can with language. But it's very useful to go back to the original words and hang out with the word avidya. Then we can talk about ignorance and what that's about. We use the word Purusha, and Purusha, the word Pura, means city. And Purusha means Atman, the pure consciousness that is dwelling in the city of life out here. You and I live in a world, in a life out here. And so we live in the city of this life out here. And Johnny and Jeff, people are putting comments there. So look at the comments later. I don't want right at this moment to comment back on all of them. Thank you all for putting the comments, because I'm streaming this into our table talk group, but I'm commenting on it for the person who wrote to me the private note inside the Udemy course. And I'll take this and I'll send this video to that person as a complete response. And I hope this is useful. I hope this was useful. I appreciate the question. I really do appreciate the question. And I appreciate the thought that went behind it, because it's obvious to me that there was an attempt to structure the words carefully to pose the question. And this, as most of us know, this is an important part of asking a question, is to attempt to say your question succinctly. The person, I don't even know if it's a he or she, did not take 10 pages to propose this question, and I wouldn't be able to read it. It's succinct. It's a few sentences. I find it easy to follow this series of sentences and try to give a response to it. And I'm just saying, this is my best shot, and I hope that it's useful. And keep going, keep pursuing, keep doing the kind of reflection that came from this. It's obvious that the person that raised this question, it's obvious that he or she has worked at trying to understand what we were presenting in that Udemy course. And I appreciate you doing that sincerely. So this is an attempt to make a response. And so thank you all for hanging out. I hope this is useful. Whew. Okay, that's the end of my rant. And so thank you again for playing, everybody. I'll put me here just to say goodbye and thank you for listening. Okay, bye-bye.